Orange County is Greta Solenzano. And from Los Angeles County, Leo Zaki.
Leo and Leo.
Okay, guys, moderators, your turn.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my absolute delight to be co-moderating this event. And we're going to start with a few ground rules for the candidates. Yes, please have a seat, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few ground rules for the candidates, and then we'll proceed with the opening remarks. Opening remarks will last 1.5 minutes per candidate. Closing remarks at the end of the forum will be 1.5 minutes as well. The question and answer response time will be 1.5 minutes as well. In the unlikely event that we are running a little bit close to our timeline parameters, we may adjust that on the back end, but we would announce that before every question. We will also feature a few lightning round questions, and these are single word responses. We will inform you just before the lightning round question emerges. The same questions will be asked of all candidates. The order of candidate responses will move from left to right, but the starting point will shift with each question so that everyone gets a chance to answer the question first as well as last. If one candidate is specifically called out by name, he or she will be allowed to respond up to 1 minute with no follow-up rebuttals. So I caution the candidates on this strategy because you will just be giving your competitor extra airtime. Time limits will be enforced. We have a timekeeper seated right in the middle. He will be holding up a display with the countdown of the minutes. If there are overages, those will be deducted from the candidate during his or her closing comments. So we are ready to kick off. Candidates may also stand when they're addressing the question or introducing their remarks. And we're going to begin with opening comments. I'm going to invite Pastor Cheon to make your first introductory comment. 1.5 minutes, please.
Proverbs 14:34 says, righteousness exalts a nation. We've had nothing but unrighteousness in Sacramento. I believe this applies to every state. The problem we know is a spiritual problem. It's an ideological problem. And I'm here as a pastor of 46 years to bring about spiritual warfare to see the transformation of California to be glorious once again. The state that gave us revival of Azusa Street to the Jesus People movement here in Orange County. I'm believing God for another spiritual awakening in California.
Your opening remarks.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. What a joy to be back with Pat Nixon, Republican women. I love seeing you all. I just want to thank you for hosting this very special evening. I want to thank all my friends here, my fellow candidates, the ones who showed up to debate with us tonight. Very much appreciate that. I want to thank all of you who made this possible. It's not easy wrangling a bunch of candidates to come along to something like this, especially Joe. I know how hard you worked. Put down that phone. Thank you very much. Look, we love this state so much. This is our home. And I'm sick of being told that the only choice is to put up with all this nonsense or leave. Why should we leave? We didn't do this to our state. The Democrats did this to our state. They should leave. They should leave office. And that's what this election is all about. We are going to end 16 years. We are going to end 16 years with one party rule. I'm sick of being told a Republican can't win in California. That is a very, very un-Californian, un-American attitude. Of course we can do it. There are plenty of Republicans to vote for us in this election. This is a much more Republican state than people think. Yes. It's a much more Republican state than they want us to think. They want us to be demoralized. We're not going to be demoralized. We're going to fight. We're going to fight for the California dream. We're going to fight the far left lunacy. We are going to fight to make this beautiful state that we love so much truly golden again. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you so very much for giving us the opportunity to say a little bit about ourselves here. I am not a politician, I am a scientist running for governor of California. My motto is make California affordable again, and we're going to do that 3 ways. Stopping corruption, holding the government accountable, and building revenues. We will take that revenue and we're going to invest it in an infrastructure, water and energy infrastructure, which is paramount to the future and the growth of the economy of this state. My name is Greta Solorzano. I'm the daughter of 2 immigrants. I was born by the grace of God in San Francisco, California, and I grew up in Nicaragua. I came back and I have had the privilege of living the American dream. I graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, with a degree in nuclear engineering, and I have had 30 years of amazing experience solving complex problems and coming out with excellent solutions. My ask to you is to please, for the first time in the history, hire somebody who has the skill set and the proven record to make California great again. There is 3 items that I'm going to work together with Republicans, Democrats, and MP and independent groups. The 3 items that we're going to work together is, one is the, stop.
Guys, I'm Leo Zaki. You guys remember Zaki Farms, right?
Yeah.
That's chicken out there, right?
Yeah.
Well, my family worked very hard for 90 years to bring you guys that product here in California. And unfortunately, California took that opportunity away from me to be able to provide great product to everybody. This state has become unbearable for individuals, for businesses, for people to raise a family. I'm a 4th generation Californian. I've spent my life here. My grandparents came here. My great-grandfather came here over 120 years ago and settled here. This state has been going downhill because of legislature. It's the politicians in Sacramento that are ruining the state. This state is full of people that have power, that have promise, that have potential, but they don't have the ability to execute on their desires and their passions because of the limitations. We have to actually take real responsibility and get qualified people into office that care about, that know this state, that want to bring the economy back to California. We can give people the chances they need. Oh, we're done.
Candidate Naranjo.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity and privilege to be here tonight. Leo Naranjo IV. What do I bring here for California? I bring here change. I bring here direction. I bring here experience and knowledge from the 36 years I've had in public service, since my days in the military, my days in the county workforce, my days in the federal workforce. 15-year Army veteran retired. 15-year Army veteran that gets the status of being a Persian Gulf War veteran, of being a World War II veteran by my assignment in Berlin, Germany, Army of Occupation. Having the top secret clearance given by our government for over 14 of those 15 years, entrusted by our government to do things in a positive way. I'm not here for excuses, I'm not here for platitudes, I'm not here for we have to hold these people accountable. I'm here to make people responsible. If you're a leader in the department and you failed in your job, you'll soon be out the door, because that's how I operate. I'm looking for success, not excuses. And that's what I want to bring to California. We've seen a lot in the course of time. A lot of folks have their rights that they get to exercise, but yours have been forfeited. That's going to change under my administration. Why am I running? First and foremost, for the citizens of this state.
Okay, I'm Dr. Greg Allsup, a vascular surgeon. I'm also a retired Navy captain, had 30 years. I used to live in Orange County when I was stationed in El Toro back when that was open. I've seen California over the last 60 years go from this garden into what it is today. And there has to be some change. The ruling party that has been out there, that has been controlling us, and you say 16 years, but with the exception, it was probably a little bit longer than that, they have incrementally taken away your rights. They've taken away, they make your businesses harder to run, they make everything more difficult to do. I'm committed to change that. And that is what I hope you're going to learn all about us as we go through these questions. Because I'm a man of few words sometimes. I don't want to go over because I don't want to lose anything. Thank you very much.
So hand it to Mr. Hilton, you'll be the first one to answer the next question, and then the procession will go from right to left. The first question for all the candidates, beginning with Mr. Hilton, is the following. California's total state budget has nearly doubled in 10 years, from 170 billion to 350 billion in 2026. But this growth also comes with significant budget deficits, greater burdens on taxpayers, and billions of dollars in waste. What specifically would you change about the state's current budget? 1.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I do hate to contradict the Treasurer, but I think I'm right in saying that the state budget has nearly doubled in the last 5 years. It was 180 billion 5 years ago. It is totally ridiculous. Is everything twice as good? No, it's worse. We pay the highest taxes in the country for the worst results. Highest poverty rate, highest unemployment rate, highest cost of living, everything a disaster. So we have to cut the budget because we have to cut taxes. And the only way you can sustainably cut taxes is to cut spending. So specifically, what I've done is already, before even being elected, start to put the plans in place. About a month ago, I announced CalDOGE, the California Department of Government Efficiency. We are already working with a team of volunteers, finding the fraud and the waste and the corruption, publishing fraud reports. We've already published 2. The first was $370 million stolen from the cannabis tax fund to pay for Democrat voter registration. The next one, $1 billion that was supposed to pay for solar panels for low-income apartment buildings, stolen to pay for Democrat organizing. Our next report is published tomorrow. I've got the team in place so that we will be ready on day one. And it's not just CalDOGE, it's my running mate on the golden ticket, Herb Morgan, running for state controller. The state controller has the power to audit every agency receiving state money and to stop the money. That is what we will do and give the money back to you.
The most important thing that we need to do is bring revenues back to California. California has become a state of services. At this point, our infrastructure is failing, literally. So there is 3 things that I'm going to do. The very first one is crude oil. In California, right now, our economy is and the world economy, as you can see what is going on right now, is very much dependent on crude oil. 70% of the crude oil that we consume here in California comes from the Middle East. That creates $32.7 billion that go to the Middle East every year. How about if we use that money to put it in our refineries? How about if we use that money to open up wealth? How about if we use that money to create jobs here in California? Item number 2. You keep hearing that California is always in a drought. There is never enough water. Do you know that California actually gets 200 million acre-feet of water a year? Out of those, because our infrastructure cannot handle it, we can only collect 45. 45. Do you know the difference that it will make to our economy if we can actually collect extra 5 or 10 million? It will lower the price of food. It will lower the price of housing. It will improve our agriculture. Item number 3, our energy, our grid. Right now, our grid, 30% of the energy comes from outside. How is it possible that we are importing it when we have the power here? We need to create some more nuclear power plants.
Yes.
With nuclear power comes waste.
Every department is always told, you get this much money every year. Make sure you spend it all. You don't get as much next year. That's very unhealthy. In business, that would never fly. I want people to be able to make efficient decisions in business, and we don't have a proper purchasing department in place. That's why I'm going to institute a purchasing department in California. If they're going to spend money, we're going to make sure that we're getting the right product at the right quality for the right price. That's going to cut a lot of the waste there. We're going to make sure that any money that's going out to different organizations, that's going to be able to track and trace the proper auditing to prevent this stuff going on in the future. We have to utilize our resources, create additional revenue streams. In business, anytime you want to do something, it has to have a means of paying for itself. And that's what I've designed with my Homeless to Home project, with my Water Abundance project. We're going to be able to defund and get good people into CEQA. That way we can actually utilize the land and the resources here, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs all across the oil and gas sector and in construction. We'll be able to generate the wealth by utilizing the water that we harvest in abundance to then export for profit via the Colorado Rivershed, which we get the lion's share of. We'll be able to have a logging industry here in California to eradicate the bark beetle and utilize that to help minimize the devastating wildfires, saving us billions of dollars on the balance sheet. And of course, we have to go through and make sure the waste, fraud, and abuse is done away with.
Ladies and gentlemen, fraud, waste, and abuse. Yes, we've heard the stories of how rampant it is in California. Believe it or not, I was in the middle of that as a union member, as a county worker, a state worker, and a federal worker to see it firsthand on what's being done with our money throughout up and down this state. One of the first things we're going to do in order to cut some of that waste off and extra spending is we're going to remove the fluff that every state agency keeps in their books by the 10% of people they don't hire so they can get extra funding to use for their projects. What I'm going to be doing is, again, responsibility. Administrators, you're going to be responsible for the people you have in your department and the vacancies that you maintain in your department. If they're not filled, they're going to be emptied out, then we're going to start to look at those agencies. EDD, my first primary target. You've lost $35 billion of taxpayer money. You're going to have a 75% recovery mandate from me up to get that money back. And if you can't do it, we're going to find the right people who can. We're going to remove the people that are incompetent, that gave excuses, and that proceeded to lose our funding. NGO, you've received over $35 billion in order to deal with the 200,000 people we have in California that are homeless. If you have a contract with any agency in this state, you have failed to do what you were supposed to do with those contracts. You owe the citizens of this state back. We're going to sue you to recover that money. We're going to exercise our right, not your prerogative or stakeholders, because for me, stakeholders are each and every one of you, not the entity that nobody speaks about.
California does not have an income problem, it does. It has a spending problem. And as far as I know, that budget has been balanced since 2014. We spend money like crazy, and the way that we have to get this under control on day one is number one, defund NGOs, all of them. Bring receipts. If you are actually doing something, if you're actually have a mission statement and you are fulfilling that mission statement, we'll reinstate your funding. If not, if we don't have the receipts, you may be, especially with a large sum of money that you've absconded with nothing, criminal charges will be pursued because you cannot steal from the people. That is one of the things that they're doing. We see, constantly with the internet bloggers who go around and say, well, this was a NGO going to make this new homeless encampment, and 2 years later the money's gone, the place is a shambles, nothing's happened. Results need to matter. Decreasing the funding to the NGOs is the first thing. The other thing is some of these regulation organizations like CARB, HUMB, all these things they're not doing it for free. And they are putting more regulations on our economy, making it harder to actually function in California. The plan would be to either neuter them or totally disband those regulatory forces, so we can actually run California without the oversight. Thank you.
It's common sense that we need to audit every budget line item in the government. There's so much corruption. I think of, for example, in 2008, we allocated $48 billion for a high-speed train from Los Angeles to San Francisco. We have nothing to show for it. We need to get rid of the corruption. We need to audit every line item. But we also need revenue sources. And one of the major things we have so much crude oil. Just in Kern County, we have enough crude oil and natural gas that even the state of Texas. And as President Trump said, I'm going to drill, baby drill. I'm going to do everything I possible to produce wealth. Now, let me just close by saying, let me just as the password. But you don't know, I started my own S Corp in 2010. I make more money because I use biblical principles for my finances. That, just to give you an idea, I'm able to give my salary back to the church. This is not a campaign gimmick. I've been doing that for the last 15 years. I'm serving as a volunteer in my church. And not only that, by God's grace, I had wanted to always give $1 million to the church in one offering. In 2022, I gave over $2 million in one offering. And I give Jesus all the glory and all the praise. And so I'm using my finances to run this campaign, and I'm going to apply the biblical principles that God's taught me of no man anything but the debt of love. In Romans 13:8. I'm going to talk about a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Proverbs 13:22. I am thinking about my 10 grandchildren and having a better California. And believe me, I am going to steward the budget because before God, I have to steward everything, and I'm going to make this thing prosperous again.
The next question applies to all of the candidates, and we'll begin with Ms. Solorzano as the first responder. The question is the following. California faces hundreds of billions of dollars in unfunded pension liabilities for public sector retirees at the most conservative estimates. How serious is this threat to the long-term fiscal health of the state? And what would you do to address the escalating liabilities?
Yes, we do have $1 trillion worth of debt in California. Thanks God, this is one of the largest economies in the world, and we do have sources to bring revenues back to California. However, we do have to change the entitlements. Healthcare needs to be changed for state employees. Pension system needs to change. We need to actually cut down on our expenses. We need to cut our administrative fees. And we need to definitely bring revenues back to California. So I'm going to follow up with what we need to do in the energy business. Instead of importing power, we actually need to be able to build our own energy sources here. We do not only have the oil, we also have the possibility of building some nuclear power plants here. If we could only bring 5 nuclear power plants, that would be enough to cover our energy sources. So that's pretty much the plan.
We have to make good on our promises. We cannot leave the people that we made these promises out to high and dry. We cannot leave them out there like that. But we cannot continue this unfair bleed on the budget. It's not viable. So we have to do away with these exorbitant pensions in the future. We cannot continue to promise them at these rates, but we have to still make good on the promises that we have made. Promises made, promises kept, and demand of that. We can fund these again by streamlining the economy, by giving the state the boost it really needs, by enabling people to actually become job creators so we can build on that taxable revenue from people out there that can create their own independent businesses. We need to be able to utilize our resources to create those additional revenue streams. And obviously, we cannot continue to fund free education and free healthcare for those who are here illegally. This state cannot continue to be a welfare state for those who take advantage of it. You put in the work, you get paid. You come here the right way, you become a part of this country. I'm all for that. But we cannot continue to bleed. When we have the funds coming in, we have the budget under control, and we do away with this burden that we've accumulated, that probably goes away. It's off the balance sheet in that capacity. And then we're able to continue to lower the taxes and make the affordability much higher. When our farmers have the access to the water they need, they can produce more food, which we can export for more revenue, which brings the cost of living down. It's all connected. But it starts with a strong and viable economy.
I smile because I just got done reading some of this about the pension the California's pension for employees. Yeah. Wow, did you know that there are 5 people that are drawing $1 million per person to lose money to the tune of $1.2 billion in debt because they followed what the Governor Nixon wanted to do on building their fund, not what they were supposed to do, fiduciarily being responsible to make sure that fund is solvent. What am I going to do? First and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to declare it a fiscal emergency. Because this year, anybody on this stage that is elected is going to walk into a $35 billion budget hole for the next 3 years. Well aware of that. So what I see on the news is that the proposition is coming up for you to fit the bill. No, that is not going to happen. We're going to have a fight with the union because we're going to send it back to their membership. We're going to recover that money first by firing those people that were incompetent enough to lose it and replacing them with individuals that have the fiduciary responsibility to be one thing and to do one thing. Make sure that fund is solvent, make sure that fund makes money, and make sure that it keeps the promises that they gave retirees. What we're going to do is we're going to let those union contracts start to lapse, and then when they come back to the table, here is the option for union members to decide. Either you give up 10% of your retirement, or everybody in the union field comes up to the 15% you're going to now put into that fund, but it is not going to go on the backs of the taxpayers. It will go on the backs of the union. Let them fight it out to make the fix.
Health thing is definitely the big elephant in the room. And I've heard some great ideas on here already, but some of it, first have to figure out how much money, where did the money go? And that is going to take a large accounting. And you got to figure out why isn't this as funded as it should be? And what is the culpability of the actual union? And what is the responsibility of the state? So with that whole thing, I agree. You cannot, once you promise somebody they work there 30 years and they retire, you cannot take that away. That is a promise. There's a fiduciary responsibility on the state to take care of that. Dealing with that and getting the economy back in order so we have more of a surplus will certainly make that would be a good step in the right direction to try to reduce the economic burden of the state. And doing that, bringing industry back into California and trying to get the coffers filled back up so this isn't some horrible catastrophe on top of whatever we're short, we got $250 billion more. That is not a good thing. So it's going to take some work and it's going to take some creativity and innovation to try to get us out of this mess. But moving forward, this plan cannot no longer exist for new employees.
I've admit this beyond my pay grade, but I want to just share it in principle. We have the fourth largest economy in the world, 4.1 trillion GDP. If we're a nation behind the United States, China, Germany, us, ahead of Japan and India. We have the money, and I am a promise keeper. If we owe people pension money, I'm going to deliver. Obviously, we need reform. Obviously, we have to audit, get rid of the corruption. But I believe that we have to do a better job in budgeting our finances. And so what I want to do is I want to, again, doge everything, but I also want to create new revenue sources. I'm going to ask for us to have AI here in California. The only reason why we don't have it right now is because it takes a tremendous amount of energy. And we need these data centers. And we need nuclear power to have the data centers. So with the technology that is so amazing and so clean and safe, Great Britain would see Canada having nuclear power. I'm going to bring, and they're going to pay for it. It's not you're going to pay for it. The companies will pay for it just like Trump wants it as far as a policy. And I'm going to create new revenue sources. And with the private sector, we'll be able to pay off our obligation that we have as a state as far as pension goes. But I also want to just say that we need reform across the board. We need good policy. $5 billion on the homeless, $24 billion the last 5 years, and 40% increase in homelessness. It's insanity. We're going to stop the madness on day one when I'm governor.
Thank you. So I think we have to take this incredibly seriously. This is a real fiscal crisis, and it's getting worse, not better. Every year, this problem is getting worse because of the gap between what's been promised and what's being invested and the returns. And some very good points were made here about what's gone wrong. And the reason it's so serious is because every year, this issue of pensions consumes, of the public sector pensions, consumes more and more of our state budget. So even while the budget goes up, spending on schools and law enforcement and roads goes down, even when the budget's going up because of this issue. That's actually what's going on. A couple of things we can do. First of all, we've got to acknowledge these are not legitimate promises that have been made. This is the product of corruption, total corruption. Why? Because the politicians who made these promises are the puppets of the unions. They are put there by the unions. funded by the unions. You look at Gavin Newsom's donations, the number one category of donors to Gavin Newsom in the 16 years he's been running statewide, government unions. It is corrupt and it has to end. We can do something now about the healthcare spending, which is off the charts. It's called OPEB, other post-employment benefits. We can immediately cut that back, so we're not spending money there. In terms of the pensions, I think Leo has some great points about what we can do there. There's another option we need to look at, which isn't legal at the moment, according to our Constitution, the federal Constitution, but a lot of people are talking about it. Declaring bankruptcy, which needs an act of Congress. Then we can actually get to the bottom of this and renegotiate this whole deal. Because if we don't, we are falling off a cliff in California.
Excellent round. Excellent responses. We're going to do one lightning round. So this means quick responses. We're looking for one word.
My name wasn't vote.
Oh, did we
Still
miss?
in vote. I know, but it was still in vote. I was called out by name. I understand it was positive, but it was still in vote. It gives me that minute, correct?
Well, that's a good point. Maybe the moderators can consult your.